Hey, what's up guys, Aarava here, and welcome back to another episode of my F1 22 My Team Career Mode. This is episode number 24 today for this Saudi Arabian Grand Prix in Season 2. And just a disclaimer guys, that this episode and the next one, episode 25, was recorded before we got today's patch 1.06. So everything I'm about to talk about is pre the patch. In the patch, obviously, if you've read the notes, they have fixed things like the personnel, they've changed the AI performances in terms of the R&D chart, may have changed, but this episode and next one for the Australian Grand Prix is before that patch. So just a disclaimer, if I talk about anything or you see anything that's different to what we now have in the current game patched, that's why. If you guys did miss the opening round of this brand new season of My Team Career Mode on this game, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one, because a lot has changed, the pecking order has changed, our car has changed, and we had a fantastic first episode at Bahrain. Albon pipped us to the line with that fuel issue. I'm not too annoyed though, because overall he drove really well, to be fair, and both of us scored very, very solid points. I think at the detriment to Ferrari, who had an absolute howler in that first episode, and so I'm hoping to see maybe where they really are in this field, because if Ferrari join the party and they're kind of, you know, around where Alpine are, according to the R&D chart, you know, this is going to be a very close fight, at least for this first part of the season. Obviously, upgrades could, you know, spread things out, but it seems like it's going to be a really close fight between Alpine, McLaren, Haas, and us and Ferrari if they were to join the fight, but we don't know for sure. But going into this episode, then we get an extra 800 R&D points for a event that popped up with the reliability HQ department. So we went for the one that offered me more R&D, because we've hardly spent anything on the actual reliability side of the car, so I'd rather have that 800 R&D points to spend straight away on some upgrades that we can actually improve the speed of the car rather than the reliability, because it's been pretty okay. So with that, we've gone ahead and purchased a drag reduction upgrade. So we have already got 2 chassis upgrades pending, so we can't actually even purchase another chassis upgrade, but that's fine. I think this is kind of a good pace with level 2 on those 2 HQ facilities. That's why I'm not, you know, rushing to spend money on those facilities, because one, I want to save to actually then spend on personnel once that is fixed in the game, and then obviously at the moment we're just not earning as much R&D to warrant, you know, having 3 simultaneous upgrades, for example. So that's a perfect scenario. Already got 2 chassis upgrades pending, purchase a drag reduction upgrade, and all in tandem is going to come in at a really nice pace, I feel, in the next episode or so. But now we are into the race weekend Saturday around JEDDAH. Now this was a really cracking race for us in the opening season, so with a much improved car, a lot closer midfield fight, I'm really looking forward to seeing what we can do here. I think me and Albon, who performed really, really well at Bahrain, I think we can really do some good work here. In terms of the setup of the car, going for lower wings to try and get a bit more top-end speed, but that is the detriment to the front end, which is a little bit understeery and did cost me here on our first flying lap for 2 Saudi Arabian Grand Prix in a row. We spin the car in qualifying. This time it was at a different point, but it was still in Sector 1, so tricky as ever on throttle. That one was a bit more, though. I got on the curb, actually, and the curb unsettled the car. But there was a bit of understeer I was feeling, but I've already committed to the setup. But it's okay, because generally it's not horrendous. It just means in Sector 1, I am kind of wanting a little bit of wing on the front to get the nose turned in. But everywhere else, Sector 2, Sector 3, more than enough wing, and hopefully will give us enough pace in a straight line to extract some good lap time, and especially in the race then make our car very raceable and allowing for some overtakes. But at that spin, we put it behind us, doesn't matter, because we do get through into the second part of qualifying in P11 there. We actually are pretty damn close, I would say, to Albon in comparison to where we were at Bahrain, I guess, but it's early days, Q1. Obviously, you can't really tell what the pecking order is going to be like, because apparently Red Bull are nowhere here. It's 2 Mercedes at the top. Ferrari looking better shape there. Leclerc in the top 4, so that's a bit more like it. That's where I thought Ferrari would be. You know, not right up there with Red Bull and Mercedes, but just tucked in behind, and maybe a team to aim for the rest of us, like myself, Alpine, McLaren, Haas, etc. So let's see how it goes into the second part of qualifying then. But a big shock there is Sergio Perez, though, is knocked out in Q1. So Red Bull, the quickest car on paper, obviously I know Hamilton ended up winning the Bahrain Grand Prix, but the Red Bulls look so quick around Bahrain. But one of them is already out of the fight then. Sergio Perez, he's going to have a long afternoon then tomorrow, or long night I should say, tomorrow on Sunday to come back through there, as Verstappen now is the only sole Red Bull then fighting the two Mercedes cars for the pole position and the front row positions. So we're now on our flying lap in the second part of qualifying, hopefully trying to make it through into the top 10 shootout. I think we've got the pace here. The car definitely has the pace, but whether we can actually just extract the time is another thing. Across the line, and it's a very strong lap. P1 ahead of Hamilton, Verstappen, Sainz and Magnussen's first laps there, beating the Red Bull Mercedes. I felt so confident that I just didn't go out again, and oh, that confidence was so misguided, because as ever sometimes with this game, as you go into the loading, you fade to black, come out of black, and magically everyone's gained time. That's my mistake, because I should have known better. I know that this game has that thing where if you just skip into the end of the session, the AI can speed up. We should have gone again, or we should have just at least sat it out all the way to the end, but I thought that was honestly good enough. But we are now falling foul of, you know, what's that? 6, 7 tenths behind, or even more actually. 8 tenths behind Albon, allegedly, at the end of the session. I don't think that's really that accurate, and that's a bit of a glitchy time of the simulation times there, but it is what it is. I took the risk. I was way too overconfident, and you know, Ferrari also paid the price there as well, because they have both been knocked out in Q2. So although I thought it was maybe going to be a return to where they actually are for Ferrari, genuinely, they actually don't look like they're capable of being in the top 10 comfortably, all things kind of stationary. Even Sebastian Vettel and the Aston Martins out-qualified them, though. So I do feel like there's something funny going on with maybe how just the AI individual, you know, drivers of Leclerc and Piastri are driving. Obviously, we know Piastri is lower rated, but Leclerc, having lost the championship, maybe his focus is so low that he's not driving at the maximum. Both Haas cars are through, Schumacher and Carlos Sainz, the Alpine of Ocon, no surprise there, and Ricciardo, the sole McLaren, that makes it through along with Bottas. But Albon looking very strong there in P3 in Q2, so who knows where he's going to end up in Q3. Of course, we can't watch it, so let's go to the grid then and find out how that last part of qualifying shook up ahead of the Grace.
We're here today on the shores of the Red Sea in the lower Hejaz Mountains to visit one of the newest circuits on the Formula One calendar, Jeddah, home to what we all hope is going to be a thrilling Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. So let's take a look at a topographical map of the Jeddah Street circuit. As you can see, a number of challenging corners for the drivers to master here. We'll see just how much the teams have benefited from their time spent in practice this weekend. And like many street circuits, this track has the potential to punish drivers that get it wrong. Let's hope we avoid any safety cars today. It's time to take a look at our starting grid for today's race. An immense lap from Lewis Hamilton yesterday puts him on pole position, edging out Max Verstappen, who will start from P2. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Russell, Sainz, Esteban Ocon and Ricciardo, Mick Schumacher, Bottas, Vettel and Charles Leclerc. The owner driver, Oscar Piastri, Felipe Drugovich and Albon. They've taken a grid penalty. Magnussen, Gasly, Lando Norris and Sergio Perez. Tsunoda, Joe, Latifi and Lance Stroll brings the grid to a close. Which of these talented drivers will come out on top today? Anthony Davidson joins me once again in the commentary box, and it's fantastic to have you here with us today. But I'm curious, as a man with experience out on the track, how do you stop those pre-race nerves from becoming overwhelming when you're lining up on the grid?
Well, I imagine they'll be starting to feel the adrenaline as they anticipate the rundown into turn one, a bit like preparing to go into battle. The unknown situation will bring nerves, but that's a good thing. It will keep them focused on the moment and on their surroundings as we build towards the start of the Grand Prix.
Well, I talked about our car reliability being fine, but Albon had to take a 10-place penalty. He's in P14, so that would suggest that he qualified in P4. Unless he took a 5 place for like a gearbox, I don't know, because I'm pretty sure it is just bog standard 10 places, is it not, for one component change. So I feel like he qualified in P4. It could have been P9 if he qualified, if it's a 5-place penalty. But either way, he's taken a penalty, so he's actually ended up behind us on the grid. Leclerc is now starting P10. We are P11 in that Ferrari sandwich. But it's still once again Lewis Hamilton versus Max Verstappen at the sharp end here. Of course, it was a fierce fight at Bahrain. Hamilton got the better of both Red Bulls, but Jeddah, I mean, we've had some fiery fights with Verstappen versus Hamilton in 2021 here at Jeddah, so let's see, is there going to be a repeat of an intense battle here with them at the sharp end? But for us, you know, P11, even though that's maybe not as high as I was hoping on Saturday, I still think we can have a banger race, because remember, we've got lower wings, so I think our car's going to be very decent at overtaking. In an inferior car, we got up to, what was it, P7 or 8, you know, in that race in Season 1. This car is so much better than that car was relative to everyone else around us. So I actually think we can have a really solid one, matching, I think, what we did at Bahrain. And I think we've got to be aiming for around at least, you know, P5 region today. Looking at the cars ahead of us, Aston Martin, Alfa Romeo, McLaren, we should be beating them. We're better than them on the R&D chart, and we know how poor the Ferraris have performed last episode. So licking my lips here at the start of this race, because I think we can have a really good one. So with that, let's get into it then as we go to 5 red lights to the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Lights out, and away we go for 25 laps around Jeddah. A lot of wheel spin for us there. Uncharacteristic from us, because we've had some great getaways on this game. So into turn 1, 3 wide as Piastri sends it down the inside of Leclerc. Vettel, the old guard who used to be in that scarlet red car, is overtaken by both of them. And now Piastri and Leclerc are fighting for track position. We're just sat behind. We made the overtake on Sebastian because he was kind of, you know, squeezed out and had a bit of oversteer. Tsunoda is out the Grand Prix, and that will be cool. That will cause an early virtual safety car. Tsunoda out before we even get to the end of the first sector, and it's for this very clumsy incident into that left-hander. I mean, his car, the simulation damage there, you know, really quite sensitive there with the AlphaTauri, but to be fair, he smacked the Aston so hard into that left-hander. So a bit of a howler mistake from the youngster in the AlphaTauri. That caused the virtual safety car, and that gives us an opportunity here, because I'm going to take inspiration, even though this was recorded before the French Grand Prix, I want to add, we're going to take inspiration from Russell. It's like I knew ahead of time, and we timed the virtual safety car to perfection to dive bomb both Ferrari cars. We got Piastri on the start-finish line when we're allowed to overtake, and then Leclerc just caught napping a little bit into turn 1, and we get the double overtake done on the Ferraris, and then now the 2 Ferraris are still scrapping and squabbling. So this is the dynamic that we saw with Leclerc versus Vettel. You know, Leclerc now is effectively the Vettel in this team, the team leader, and he's got the young shot trying to overshadow him. Piastri, he's so much lower rated, but he's just gone and overtaken Leclerc, and goes back to my point that, you know, in qualifying, that I think what's happened here is, because Ferrari, their car is still okay. It should be just as quick, just about, as Mercedes according to the R&D chart, but I genuinely think Leclerc's got such low focus from losing the championship last season that that's affecting how well he's performing. And then Piastri, you know, he's just lower rated, so he can't, you know, take the Ferrari to where it should be. But Leclerc's just so low focus that he's driving at the same level as where Piastri is. Meanwhile, in a different realm, Verstappen and Hamilton driving at the maximum. Verstappen half a second behind Lewis, and already I'm getting vibes of Jeddah 2021. Those two are definitely going to be scrapping later on in this race for P1 for sure. No one else is anywhere near touching them, as we've got yellow flags behind the 2 Ferraris having a scrap once again to the final corner. On to lap 3. We're closing up to Bottas here. We're much quicker in a straight line, it would seem. Can we make a move on the outside of turn 1? Bottas defends it, but we've just got the overwhelming grip and pace to go right on the outside, squeeze them out a bit, and we're up into P8 then. So making good progress here. Like I said, we should be getting Schumacher, we should be getting Ricciardo, Ocon, and Sainz. They're the 2 cars that may give us more of a fight. But theoretically then, we could be fighting for as high as P4 then today, because we should be chasing after and catching Sainz and Ocon in theory in clean air. Meanwhile, now at the sharp end, here we go. Verstappen versus Hamilton for the first time in this race on lap 4. Verstappen the long way around. Hamilton defends. They're going to make a bit of contact. They are very close on the exit to making more contact there. Hamilton squeezed to the wall. He's going to push Verstappen back a little bit, though, to the right-hand side. He'll have the inside line. Verstappen still keeps his foot in, and he might just make a worldly overtake. No, Lewis comes back at him. Bit of more contact in Sector 1. That is absolutely stunning stuff there. Hamilton keeps P1 just about, but what a fight that was between those two AI. Insane stuff. If that continues on for this entire race, I'm going to have a bloody heart attack commentating this. That was insane. And they're both fighting so hard that they may lose time, with each other, and we could all gain on them and just slowly creep up and get involved in the fight and kind of form a train there. Meanwhile, we watch Albon chasing after Bottas and the two Ferraris. I'm hoping he can try and recover from that grid penalty. He's made good progress so far from P14. Back to the action, though, at the sharp end. Verstappen going again. This time, will he go to the inside? Yes, he does. But look at Hamilton squeezing him, then goes to the racing line. He's on the inside now for turn 2. Verstappen is the one on the outside. And look at that squeeze. Those two are really pushing each other right to the maximum. It really is JEDDAH 2021 vibes all over again. This time, they're mirrored. Verstappen is on the outside now for this Sector 1 section. And this is going to be crucial because now he'll do exactly what Hamilton did, get through on the inside for that left-hander, and he's up into P1 of this Grand Prix. But look at where Russell is. Look at where Sainz is even. Carlos Sainz is legitimately in this train in a Haas from P1 to P4. Incredible. And now it's back to our POV because we've been left out a little bit in the action, but it's time to make a move on the first Haas, hopefully, of the evening. I hope we can try and chase after Sainz as well, but we need to get past Schumacher first to get into P7. We close right up into the final corner, almost pushing him through mid-apex, and now we should have the run. We have plenty of ERS to play around with now with the upgrading we've done on the engine side of things. DRS open onto lap 6. Schumacher has DRS off Ricardo, but it won't matter. He's gone very defensive, tightens up his line into turn 1, and it's a pretty simple move actually into turns 1 to 2, and we're into P7, and now we can chase after Ricardo, the next target. We just got to keep on chasing after the next car, and we're not even thinking about getting stuck behind them. Meanwhile, Piastri again overtakes or defends, or what other way. The two Ferraris pretty much have been side by side this entire race, so it's hard to tell if Piastri just overtook him or defended that position, but either way, look at the minimap. Those two Ferraris scrapping have lost the entire grid so much time. It's actually insane how much time they've lost just fighting each other for everyone's sake behind them, including our teammate Albon, which is a bit of a shame because it means Albon's going to have a very slim chance of getting into some good points-paying positions today. Meanwhile, we are gaining and gaining on Ricardo, and we're getting so much that we're going to go for a late lunge on the inside of that left-hander, which is usually just one gear shift down and a very quick left and right. That's such a unorthodox place to make a move. The balls of steel were needed there, and to be honest, I was kind of half wincing a bit making that move because I thought for a second Ricardo was going to turn in a bit too much and cause an accident, but no, fair play to him, gave us the room, and we made a fantastic overtake, and now we've got clean air to chase after the next car, which is the Alpine. Back at the sharp end, Verstappen leading the way by 7/10, so Hamilton not pressurising as much as I was maybe thinking they would continue to do. Who is pressurising is Carlos Sainz on Russell, so this is the Spaniard in the Haas. He's actually pressurising a Mercedes car for a P3 position, so this Haas in the hands of Sainz is fighting for a podium here, whereas the more senior Ferrari team, the people who provide their power units, floundering in P9 and P11. It's just insane as we now watch their Schumacher versus Ricardo, but there are these lot then, Bottas and a sandwich of Ferrari, so even the Alfa Romeo has gone and overtaken on the Ferrari cars as we now gain on Esteban Ocon on lap 10. This time we're not going to make the same move we did on Ricardo Ricardo, because you saw there Ocon's AI actually very cleverly moved across just a little bit to, you know, stop that move happening. So maybe a little bit of AI learning there, a little bit from Ocon there, because I was surprised at that movement, but it's fine though. Into the final corner, DRS aided, we're going to make the move on the outside, but Ocon comes back at us with a dive bomb into the apex of the final corner, so we're now side by side on the exit. So the Frenchman's done really well to squeeze us out and keep his foot in the fight, but it's ultimately going to be to no end, because we're going to have enough speed. We're going to squeeze him to the left, take the racing line, and then go round the outside to finish this move off. He had DRS to help him out there, so that's why he was actually able to even fight that as much as he did. But on the exit, bit of a drift for good luck, and we're going to block him off on the inside to book in P5. But I sense more. Sainz, he's right up the gearbox of Russell. If they fight, we could catch them. We could definitely catch them. And lap 12, Verstappen and Hamilton, they are in now for their first pit stops. And whilst that's happening, Carlos Sainz is looking to make the move. Russell's made a mistake. He locks up into turn 1, and Carlos Sainz is into the lead of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix in a Haas. Absolutely what are we watching? Only 2 episodes into season 2, and we have deviated so far from real life already. Sainz and Russell are in, and we've caught them up on that lap, on that in-lap here, so we could be right in the fight with Russell and Sainz here, and that means we're in the fight for a podium. Now, the last 2 times we were in the fight for a podium, our engine went bang and popped. So let's hope not. Let's all pray for that. That's not going to happen today. It's a good pit stop for us. Not as good as the Mercedes, because Russell stays ahead just about. But we do jump Sainz, so just showing the Haas mechanics not up to scratch, it would seem, as Russell brake checks us a little bit on the exit there. I was kind of annoyed by that, because I could have definitely maybe gone around the outside if he just kind of took his normal line, and he was very slow on these hard tyres. But to be fair, in the rest of Sector 1, I'm very slow. These tyres are so horrendous to warm up. But we have both jumped Sainz due to Haas's lack of speed in the pit stop. And now that means we are behind Russell. And with DRS, we're able to actually sit behind him really nicely. We're going to be patient. We didn't make a rash move into that left-hander. Instead, we're going to wait for the final corner, or into the final corner, I should say, as we squeeze through on the left-hand side. Russell gave us a real good hard time, though, because for a second there, I thought, he's not going to stop going left, is he? We're going to get put in the wall. But thankfully, just able to make it by as we now watch Ocon pressurizing Sainz. So what a shame for the Spaniard. But I guess the race pace on those hard tyres, maybe not the same for the Haas as it was on the mediums. Meanwhile, Russell going round the outside, flexing the muscles of the Mercedes downforce into turn 2. He cleanly outbrakes us, but we are going to try and dive back down the inside, and we're going to use all the width of the circuit to squeeze him out and get back into P3. But that was fine, because for a second I thought, oh god, that's game over. He's got us into turn 1, and that's the end of that battle for the podium. But no, kept our foot in, and now we're going to play quite smart, because now we're going to let Russell through on purpose by lifting off early into that corner in order to re-get the DRS onto the next lap. So playing some big games here, just like Leclerc and Verstappen were in real life on the big stage here at Jeddah earlier this year, just playing a bit of cat and mouse with the DRS to our advantage. But Russell, ever present in the Mercedes car, he's got the grip. We've not had the best exit of turn 1. He's going to try and make a move into the left-hander. There he goes, but we just keep it on the racing line, and he gets squeezed out. That now Ocon and Sainz are right up his gearbox. I'm really hoping Ocon or Sainz, either of them, can start attacking him a little bit, like Sainz did earlier in stint 1, because that would give us a bit of breathing room. Meanwhile, Albon, P14, it's been tough going for him. You know, he got stuck behind that Ferrari fight, so he's racing not even for points today, but he's showing that he's got some great pace and showing where our car is, because he waltzes by Gasly with DRS there up to P13. He'll probably go chase after and overtake Sebastian Vettel, and might even be able to close up to the Ferraris. Meanwhile, whilst on lap 19 then, Ocon will answer my prayers, and he's going to go for the move on Russell. He faked to the right, went to the left, and already that's going to gain us about a whole second there, so we're already outside of DRS range from any of these guys in P4 as they continue to scrap. Ocon keeps his nose in on the inside. Bit of contact, I think, was made there as the rear end squirreled for the silver arrow, but Ocon makes a absolutely insane overtake. What commitment from the Frenchman, and it's a similar move to the one Verstappen made earlier on Hamilton. Speaking of Hamilton, 2.4 behind Verstappen now. The Red Bull flexing its race pace, and it looks like it's going to be now a comfortable win for the Dutchman there. But Ocon and Russell fighting, massively helping us out, because now we've got about 3 seconds on them nearly, as we now watch our teammate Albon scrapping Piastri and Sebastian Vettel. He's making the move on the Ferrari, and he's made the move on Vettel. They're 3 wide into the final corner, but Albon is the one that comes up on top. 2 overtakes for 1. Albon showing that this car has pace. It's really a shame that he had that grid penalty, because he could have been right up here with me, but he's just showing that the car has pace and showing his talent as well as our AI teammate up into P11, and now he's got clean air to hopefully chase after Bottas for maybe 1 point in this race. But we talked about Verstappen having an easy ride in this race.
Okay, information on Verstappen. They seem to have an issue.
He's now got an issue, my engineer tells me. So he was about 3 seconds ahead of Hamilton now, but with 3 laps to go, Verstappen has now got some issue, and Hamilton will be able to close up. Meanwhile, back with this fight on lap 23, Russell looking to try and re-overtake Ocon for P4, but well and truly now, these guys have fought so much that I think the P3 is safe now, because we're about nearly 3.5, it'll be 4 seconds maybe by the time these two finish squabbling in Sector 1, as Russell looks to go around the outside, and look at Ocon just on the left-hand side. You can see his car is still there on the inside, and again, he's able to keep his foot in, and it's a very identical move for Ocon there to defend his P4 rather than overtake it. And it is all kicking off in this Grand Prix in the dying laps, because here comes Hamilton now. He goes through on the right-hand side. Verstappen's got issues, but he's going to continue to fight this as much as he can. Hamilton's got DRS there, but Verstappen somehow keeps level with him. They're side by side through that left and right. 1 flick down of the gear, and they're going so quickly, but somehow they've kept it out the wall, kept from making contact from each other, and Verstappen now, with the aid of DRS, with that new detection point, actually stays in P1, despite the mechanical issue, which we know from history how slow the AI become with this mechanical issue. He's somehow kept it up in first place. This is an insane drive from the Dutchman, the reigning double world champion, remember, and this is a champion's drive as he gets into turn 1, still in first place on the second last lap of the Grand Prix. But now, at the end of Sector 1 into Sector 2, Hamilton round the outside, and finally, this may be the nail in the coffin for Verstappen. Hamilton's just got too much relentless pace. He's still trying to fight this, Verstappen is, but Hamilton is not giving up, and eventually, now on this straight, you're going to see there the difference of speed on this straight, and Hamilton will pull away, but Verstappen's got DRS and keeps up with him here, and he's still right up the gearbox, so it's not over. It's not over maybe, but this is now booking in our 3rd place, because we are 12.5 seconds away from second, but we are 4.2 seconds ahead of Russell, and Russell has had to keep up with Ocon's pressure. So I'm getting excited about the fight for P1 and P2, but we've got to get more excited for what we've done in this race. Quietly, very quietly, we find ourselves in a very good position for our first podium if the engine holds out. Last lap of the Grand Prix though, Verstappen's still right behind Hamilton. Hamilton goes deep, he's gone off, and they make contact at turn 1. Oh my goodness me. Hamilton, Verstappen come towards, front wing damage for the Mercedes and the Red Bull car. Hamilton under pressure, makes a mistake. Verstappen tries to overtake him, but he's not got the pace. The mechanical issue is just too much for the Dutchman, and he's still only in P2, and Hamilton could still go through to win this, but it's drama in the dying laps of this race between two previous title protagonists in 2021. They come towards again at Jeddah in the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Meanwhile, on this last lap, moves going left, right and centre. Granny Joe and Gasly fighting for P13. Albon is a bit too far behind Bottas, unfortunately, so really sad that he's not going to get any points because he deserves some after his qualifying, but it will be Lewis Hamilton that is going to come through to win this race, a bit controversially maybe on the last lap, versus Verstappen, but we we don't care about that. We don't care, because we are in 3rd place, and we're going to finally come through for our first ever podium in F1 22, my team career mode. 3rd time lucky the engine didn't blow up whilst we were in a podium position. 3rd place, driver of the day. It has never felt so sweet.
They've delivered an outstanding performance today under intense pressure to take a well-earned victory here at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Tell me, Anne, how do you think they were able to deliver such an incredible result today?
I think that smart tyre management on track and very smooth driving definitely assisted in their victory today. That combination meant they got the absolute maximum out of their tyres at all times.
I can see the drivers starting to approach the podium for the victory celebrations. A real team victory today. Everyone played their part. Congratulations then to Mercedes, your race winners today.
Well, it's 2 wins back-to-back to kick off Lewis Hamilton's new campaign here in Season 2. The Silver Arrows are very much here, and it is very much Hamilton versus Verstappen 2.0, it would seem, this season. I really thought the Red Bull was going to get that. They were dominating that race until that car issue slowed Verstappen down. Ultimately, you know, put him back into that situation where they made contact. But that wouldn't have happened. That last lap wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for Red Bull's little issue with the car, because Verstappen was cleared by like 3 seconds. So it's another bit of reliability woes, maybe, for the Austrian team there. But for us, what a day. The podium, finally, the 3rd time lucky. We didn't get an engine failure, and we've got a podium in our 2nd only race in this season. But the car had the pace. Obviously, we were helped out by Russell fighting Ocon so much, so thanks to them. So that did go our way, but we just had a lot of good race pace, to be honest, and Albon did as well. It's just a shame that you got held up in traffic, and obviously, remember, held up by Ferraris fighting for about 10 laps at the start of the race. So what could have been for him, I'm sure he's going to bounce back at Australia, but we are still sitting pretty then in 3rd place in the Constructors' Championship. I'm 3rd in the Drivers' Championship ahead of Russell and Perez, and both Ferrari drivers, of course. If you told me that at the start of the season, I would have thought you're having me on, but absolutely insane Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. There's something about Jeddah on the F1 game. It is actually so bloody entertaining. It's awesome. Guys, if you have enjoyed that as much as I have, then be sure to hit the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.